Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing live show number 498, this February 21st of 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us live from around the world, as everybody begins to pop into the room, wonderful to see everyone. Still amazed at time zones that everyone comes from. Thanks for watching us on our TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, on your smart TV, or on our simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, on and on. And Discord, actually, we just added that one to give as a test run for live streaming for us as well. Different format, different platform functionality, but we'll see how it goes for us. Anyways, today, it's as always with the show, we're very centric on what has been happening in current real time, not to get into what we see in the news domestically in the United States all the time and what everyone sees globally from their coverages as to what's happening in the United States. Huge amounts of transitions of things going on. With all of that comes the interesting perspective of how is this going to evolve and trickle into hospitality itself. I mean, other than the everywhere discussion about the cost of eggs, I think we're looking at lots of different things. We're looking at a lot of staff changes in the government. We have a polite way of saying it. And of course, these are going to have ripple effects on the ability for people to be able to have vacations, to travel, what business travel might be necessary. There's a whole ripple in the pond effect of all these things that are happening, all too soon to tell as to what the impacts of those things are. But nonetheless, regardless, good or bad, there will be impacts to all of this. We're going to have a way of our industry looking at what we're going to be doing for ourselves. One of the things I can say truly and honestly that has already existed in our industry and is now getting more prevalent again is the demand for higher performances, more output without the need, or not the needs there, without the resources of expansion. It seems to be a persistent theme through all companies, given the temperament or the outlook of what they think is going to happen economically. So let me get to the title and I'll break it down a little bit more into some of the aspects of the topic for today. Comes from several discussions with several of entities, clients, and also think tank groups that I'm a part of, and presentations to corporate entities that I have given. Everybody's of this mantra: doing more with less. Sound familiar? Like annoyingly familiar? But let me add a little bit to it. Doing more with less and less and less. But the optimism from my perspective is how to scale without the additional bandwidth that you're not being given. Very real factor of it is when things were good and revenues were coming in well and we were able to call our shots for ADR and occupancies were handling well, and there was this growth these past 3 years, for the most part, obviously hiccups here and there. It was the mantra was always the same: great, we don't need to bring on extra debt. We need to yield our revenue profitability better so that we can make up for our lost efforts during the pandemic lockdown, so forth and so on and on and on. Always profit margins and ROI dictate why you're being told and your annual budgets. I know you put somebody in the budget to be added to your department, but we're not giving it to you, or we're making it slow. We're going to see how the first quarter goes before we determine whether we have the monies to be able to do this, so forth and so on. Even when things are good, you're told to do more with less. That's my point. Now, with a skepticism as to how the economy is going to be working out or the impacts on us, it only legitimizes the mantra of you're going to have to do more with less. And it's unfair. It's the reality of our roles. It's the reality of what's expected. There's not a face and a place or a person sometimes. I mean, private ownerships, you can kind of look at the owner and go, really? I mean, I see the 110-foot yacht here. I'm supposed to make it where I'm doing 12-hour days, but you're banking and running a 110-foot yacht out whenever you like, not seeing why I need to do the sacrifice unless you're going to give me some value for what I'm doing it for. Those conversations don't usually go very far. You usually change careers when that happens. For publicly traded companies, obviously the conversation is just indifference to it, where it's a matter of we have promised financial progress, and in order for us to do that, we can only control what we have as controllables, and amplify our ability to yield better what revenues we're getting, especially on a downturning market. So that legitimizes the do more with less mentality. No, you're not going to get the resources to do more. As a matter of fact, you're just going to have to do more with all that you have currently have. So if you think it's hard now, As the SEAL teams used to say, the easiest day was yesterday. Kind of that mantra that's running right now. So painting the dark picture, that's the way it is. And that's now been legitimized by the concerns of what the economy is going to be for this year. I know that the stocks just took a tumble domestically here in the United States when Walmart kind of said, hey guys, we're not immune to this whole tariff thing going on as well too. So expect that cost of living is going to have an impact on our ability to be profitable, which sent the market down because Walmart is a touchstone of what they see as domestic economy. And if they're worried about it, then we should all be worried about it. Well, we are a leisure business. Yes, we're a business where people have to travel for business, but those are costs that can be determined whether or not we need to maybe do less travel and more digital communications. Because they have the same excuse to their clients. Hey, I know we love to show up on your doorstep, love to spend time one-on-one, FaceTime, whatever. But to keep our costs down, we feel that maybe we should economize some things and maybe have more, albeit less productive, but digital communications through Zoom, screens, and so forth, to keep our costs equitable so that you don't have to get impacted with our expenses, so to speak. So we might see some of that. So even though we are in the leisure business and in the hospitality business, we do have a business component of that. We have segments of business that we do business with. And that has a trend on whether or not we're going to have conferences maybe as much, whether we're going to have corporate travel as much. There's a ripple of that already in place. That being said, first thing that's going to be looked at is, of course, the do more with less. We need to economize our costs. Now, I will make the caveat very clearly: you cannot cost save yourself into profitability. You need top line revenue to yield against. No matter how much you cut costs, if you're not getting top line revenue, you're not creating profitability by what you're doing. You're only cannibalizing yourself temporarily. To that end, you need to focus on two reactions to this. As a company, yes, you're now justified in saying we need to do more with less. Congratulations. You ran the race earlier when you didn't need to, and now you got to run the same horse when you have to. The second of it is, what are you doing about driving more top-line revenue? If we are looking at a lesser demand relationship, then we have to see where we can garner more of our share of business in market, which means taking business from our competitors. We have to be better at our marketing than our competitors are. And in turn, our destination compared to other destinations, and validate more value to what we're doing compared to them. And I can tell you flat out, so many businesses right now are not prepared for what they are needing to do, rolling up their sleeves to get prepared for the competitiveness that we're about to step into, as we are stepping into it now. There is this still ideology of thinking that we can still yield higher ADRs. There's still this ideology of thinking that the demand that we have on the books from the past couple of years, we're still demand to be expected on this year's books. We still have the belief and understanding that our cost amounts will still be in line with what we can manage. All of those factors are not true. I'm not saying every market that's going to happen to. There's some markets that one aspect, both two aspects, all three aspects may not happen at all. They might have a boom year. We already know the people that have disposable income higher up will continue to do what they're doing. The K economy we've talked about so much. But they're also going to be looking for value proposition because they know they don't have to spend as much. That's why they're affluently wealthy. They know that they can marginalize their costs by, instead of saying, hey, look, I'm going to drop $500 a night at this place or $800 a night at this place. No, I'm going to make it so that either you give me a lower rate or I'll go to a competitor that is willing and happy for me to pay that money for them. So they're going to leverage that relationship. So we're going to be forcing ourselves down in the sense of our ADRs because we have people that have the ability to spend the money, but the willingness to do so is not so much there, in the sense of we're going to look for value as well. That's why they have the money they do. They look for value. So brings me back to the original conversation of doing more with less, how to scale without bandwidth, additional bandwidth. How? Well, we've been playing with these toys now for the better part of a year and a half. And I'm surprised, especially when I join the think tank conversations, of how much we haven't moved forward. People are still making goofy pictures and funny voiceovers and lazy blogs and what have you with AI. But there are true scalable tools that can help with things that you need help with that you haven't looked at in the way of how it can help you. You've looked at it in applicability to outside things, but not applicability to your own time management, communication management, project management. And to that end, you need to either do one of two things: look and see what's already been built, or look at what it would take to build what you need. What do I mean by all of this? Well, the old adage is you need somebody to help you because you're overwhelmed with the work that you have. But to hire somebody, you don't have the time to find them, and you don't have the time to train them because you have to take twice as much time while training to teach them to do the work you already don't have enough time for. So things break and things fall off the plate. So the old circular loop, I need somebody to help me, but I don't have the time to train them. It's very true. Same too with looking at what you do. You're so entrenched on how you handle your daily block of work, your daily load of communications, and the emails, the calls, the project updates, the fires, the whack-a-moles, all the stuff that occupy your day, that you never sit back and say, can I do it differently? Now, you may have tried to do it differently on occasion where you felt the need of saying New Year's resolution, or, hey, budget's low, let me try to redefine what I'm doing, whatever. But it doesn't stick. You've seen all the New Year's resolution conversations that there's some Friday that's called, where people drop off the resolutions for the year because it's not a long enough time. Professionals tell you need to replace a habit with another habit that does what you need. It satisfies the value of the first one to the point where you do it repetitively, that after a period of time, that becomes the new habit. People don't give themselves enough time. They also equate that one-time failure is complete failure, and they abandon it and go back to their old ways. I'm not here to be a therapist for how you can change your behavior. I'm here to describe that there are tools in market now and ways to make your own tools in market now to solve things that you haven't considered that need solving. You've just assumed the burden of them. Let's take something out of context and out of the hat, not out of context, out of the hat. Emails. We get too many of them. We also get stupid emails, and those are the ones that started as a subject that now has ventured and crept laterally off of the subject line because people are lazy, and because the people that are on the email in the broadcast of it, you've been dragged into this vortex of an audience to an email that you don't have direct need to contribute or respond to, but you're sucked in there for audience value. You know which ones they are. And people start using them as shortcuts of, oh yeah, everybody needs to do is talk about this. So even though we're talking about subject A, I'm going to drop in the conditional addition of subject B. And then it takes its own life and it keeps getting paraded in this email string. And you look at the email string, if everybody uses Google, you'll see, the history of the string, so to speak. And even in Outlook and even in Apple, you see it. And you're looking and going, wow, all these people, this is filling their inbox with. All these people who don't really have a direct relationship with this subject anymore are having to deal with this email that keeps popping in their email account. And even though they may not feel that they're engaged, they have to be careful that they didn't get sucked into it, so they go look at it anyway. So here's this problem: email communications. A lot of times, given the intermittency or the frequency of the email, it may have been an important email. It tangented off. You're in the audience of it. And then a few days go by, and then it pops back into your email. And when it pops back in, it's got a full load of garbage that you weren't involved with, but you got sucked back in. And now you have to take the time to kind of replay the story, get refamiliar with the whole email string as to where you last knew about what was being said and catching up to where it is being said now and why you got included in it now, which could have been as simple, that don't laugh when I say this, as somebody hitting an old reply all compared to the current reply all where you weren't on it. Kid you not. Anyway, I know it sounds like a whine, but it's a reality, very big reality. And for people that have used their hands for working, where they're physically the ones repairing and painting and fixing and doing laundry work and so forth, they laugh and say, you have no idea that that's no problem. It's like, well, yes, but all of us have job roles, and in our job, we have emails, and emails do this. So what do you do about it? Well, AI, I've been talking about AI. Great. What do you do with AI? There are plenty of things with just basic AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, that you can do that can summarize your emails. A lot of them now, especially Gmail, Outlook, where you can just say summarize the email. Here's the problem with that. It's cute. It's novel. It's also not always accurate. And two, it takes out the tonality of the emails. You miss the nuances of emails. Now, we've always blamed emails that sometimes you read into them what shouldn't be read into them and miss what was written into them. add a AI summary to it, and that totally makes it a third mess up because now the summary may not be relevant because it focuses on just the volume of a topic, but not its prioritization. But because there was a volume of time spent on it, it prioritizes it. Anybody that has a chat follower and a transcriber on virtual email, virtual meetings knows what I mean. The executive summary is actually sometimes very humorous as to what it thought you were talking about, simply because of the context of time spent on the weather or somebody's kids or something. So those aren't reliable from just a basic view. They can be helpful, and the helpful part is by you defining how you want it to work. What do I mean by that? I'm not talking pie in the sky. To back up what you're using ChatGPT for, ChatGPT is a long language model, LLM, long language model, which means it has the universe to tap into and the functionality that you ask it. That's great, but kind of like swatting a mosquito on the wall with a shotgun. You might get the mosquito, but you also got a big hole in the wall. It isn't the best tool for what you want as a solution. What I mean is the better solution is what's called small language models. Basically, AI agents. Now, agents are very particular task-generated functions. Long language models create small language models. Go figure, they're like little babies. You can make a long language model do small language model functions, like summarize my email. That's saying, out of all the things you can tap in the universe, I just want you to look at my email right now and tell me what is in it. That's great. But it's doing it from a non-reference point of view. ChatGPT does not know who's involved or anything. It's literally looking at the words and categorizing them on its way of understanding it, the algorithm, the machine learning, and the modeling that it's been used to create to determine how often words were used, how long contextually over the time duration the topic was made, how many frequencies of a particular contributor was in there. This is the math aspect of what the long language model does. And it comes back with what it thinks based on what you gave it, based on no other reference point of value, okay? What the summary of that email is. Sometimes it's helpful, usually times it's humorous. In that same email, let's say it's your boss talking. Well, that would have a higher priority of taking that data of what the boss's transcript was or boss's email was in context to everybody else. Also, too, topic driven. If it's a particular project relevance would be more of a priority than whether or not they spent 10 minutes talking about kids and school and so forth as a warm up to a call, or an email that had somebody was sick and there was some feedbacks like, hope you're feeling better and so forth. That gets cluttered into your long language model summary. You want to declutter that by saying, this person's a priority, this topic's a priority, and I don't want things engaged with other than those two things to be in my summary. Refer to people that refer to only this, refer to my boss as to whatever he says, that is most important in the summary, and this topic is the most important thing that he's talking about. That helps with the summary of the email. How do you do that? Well, there are AI agents that you can go look for that do exactly that. And what it does is small AI agents or small language models have no outside brain. What they have is how to address the data, but you have to tell them the data to use. So in that, you train and teach. Now, this goes back to my analogy of you're already overwhelmed with work and you don't even have the time to hire and train somebody to do the work that you need help with, because then it would make it twice as bad. Same mentality, but this is little creep-ins of things that you do. This is when you have the 5-minute break, the call that ended early and you got a 15-minute swing before the next one, and you don't need to prep for the next one, so it's an easy drop in. Take that 15 minutes and go in and say, okay, let me teach this small language model AI agent what I want. And what I want is an email summary. And I want the person by name. I want this email to be reviewed where Mr. Smith, my boss, is a priority of email. The topic is related to XYZ, okay? And I want that to be the focus of the summary, and to not refer to any small talks or general conversations outside of the topic, my boss, and who he was talking to. And then you hit it and you tell it to go look at the email and it comes back with something. And then you look at it and go, okay, no. You're still picking up that Mary is just coming back from leave, and no. So yes, that you referred to Mary's engagement of conversation about topic XYZ, but only information related to the project XYZ in the summary. Try it again. So it's a progressive, you're helping the model understand what you want the summary to be like. Just the same when you reply. Some models and some platforms you see, there's some services out there saying, hey, get our AI assistant and it'll learn how you answer emails and it'll answer in the same tonality and way that you answer them. It's partially true, and there are actually some that do pretty good, and there's a lot of them that don't. The idea of it is that you then take this application that's been made by somebody else. They've taken the time that you don't have to make an AI agent, small language model AI agent, that does really good email responses. Okay, it's a plugin you put into your Outlook, or a plugin you put into your Google, or a plugin you put into your Safari. Not Safari, excuse me, but your Apple Mail. And it will work with how you respond by going through all of your responses on that email and seeing what tone you have. And it will show you what it would reply. Like, okay, I'm going to reply this email, but wait, let me hit the AI assistant and see how they reply. And you look at it. I like that. I like that. That does not sound like me. You go change it and say, this is what I like. And you're literally saying, okay, I'm making changes, and say, I'm going to send this one. You just now taught that AI agent, small language model, how to reply as you for your emails. Now you may say, well, gee, Lauren, that's more work than me just answering the email. You're absolutely right. At this moment, it is. But as you do it more often, give it a shot. Okay, no, change that. Now send it. Eventually, it's going to come and go, boom. Yeah, I like that one. Just send that one. Don't let it automate itself to always do without your supervision. But instead of you having to write a complete discourse back. Now, you've seen the ads on TV where, Gemini does that for somebody on an iPhone, like, make this sound, whatever. It's in the same vein of those things. But again, people play it as a novelty. They don't really use it as effectively in a functional way. Now, why are we talking about this when it comes to doing more with less and not having the bandwidth to help with that? The biggest way to eat an elephant, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, is the analogy. Oftentimes, when approached with the idea that I have too much to do and not enough time to do it, you look at the largest projects first. I do that with my emails. I clean up my email accounts all the time. I get 47 to 55,000 emails a week with all the different aspects that I have on accounts. And I often go into them and look first at the ones that are the biggest volumed ones that are causing the problems, the auto replies, the newsletter signups, whatever it is, the notification stuff that I don't need that much of, and I just cull it out. But really the ones that are the hardest ones are the ones that are the persistent ones, the little niches of things that constantly are drains of time. And that's what these things can help with. And I'm making these emails as just a simple example. This is only one example of many things. And we're happy to talk about a couple of more of the things related to it. You're taking a knock out of something that just over accumulation of the effort of constantly doing it is one of your larger stealers of time. And if you can knock down 10, 15, 20% of that time to not having to sit and craft, because one of the things I will often say is my mind is geared to a current dialogue that I have, and an email comes up, and it's an important one about a completely different, maybe client or maybe topic, maybe project, whatever it is, and I need to get back to it. So now there is a mental gear shift, stopping with what I'm doing over here that I was doing, and getting back into the familiar groove, because we've all sent an email that is out of context. Like I'll get back to you, and didn't either read the email or was tone deaf to what you needed to do. And people were like, landed wrong. Okay. So important emails, you can't do that with. So you have to go back in, change gears, get revved up into it, dive back into it, make sure you get back into the sequence of what you were doing with that at that moment where you need to reply back in the same aspect and tonality and so forth. And here, lo and behold, you now have a better small language model agent working with you that can go look at it and say, hey, Lauren, this is what I think we could go back as a reply. And I can look at it and say, maybe change this, okay, good, send. And I didn't have to recreate 2 or 3 paragraphs of background of it, follow up with it, detailed referral to it. The AI did that. All I had to do was clarity, consistency. Yes, my point, please send it off. That 2, 3, 5 minutes savings may seem small, but incredibly valuable when you add it to the 2, 3, 5 minute savings that you've done another dozen times. Because like I said, every day we're deluged. Me, tens of thousands of emails per week kind of stuff. No, I don't read them all in that sense, because a lot of them are just in perpetuity of keeping aware of things and looking at things and prioritizing things and feedbacks and responses and replies of things that are automated. But there's plenty in there that is, and plenty in that will just suck up time. And how many of us have spent an hour replying in a way, or rewriting in a way, and rewriting in a way emails to people that we just don't get it right. And we talk through ourselves, and we paint ourselves in a corner mentally, and we're like, oh, even when I should hit send, I don't feel good with it, so I'm not going to hit send. Let me rewrite it again. Here, an AI is almost like a mirror of you that you go over and say, well, I don't like what you did, but I like where it started, and I kind of like that direction, so let me take that and make some changes. Just even that help is helpful, okay? That's one small component of small language models helping you. Now, as I said, there's 2 ways of doing this. One, you can build it yourself, which I gave you a brief example at the very beginning, just saying, hey, look, you get a small language model and you define it to your small data. On our podcast today and podcasts in past, but today we're going to go through it as well. There's tools that we use that help with this. One of them we will talk about is a platform called TinyTalk, where you define PDFs and website links and Word docs and so forth, and you give it a library of stuff. And then you help it in its tonality. Slightly humorous or aggressive or authoritative or professional or whatever, and you modify how you want it to be and to resonate with the content. And then you can go over and help it get used in the sense of a resource for maybe emails, or maybe it is content that you're creating that you wanted to echo what you're giving it as data to use, but you wanted to make it sound coming from you. A lot of the division I think we'll have in the future is that we're going to be faced with looking at content. Is it human-based or is it generated? We're going to begin to create that. And I think I was certainly not old enough for this referral of time, but back when handmade was bad and machine-made was good, because there was a consistency of productivity on it, it then inverted itself where people were looking at more of that personal handcrafted product compared to the standardized manufacturing product. So as the industrial age took over and created standardization of quality and consistency and so forth, and diminished cost, that had its high value. People loved that better than handmade. But over time, people didn't like the uniformity that manufactured products had and looked for that uniqueness of handcrafted. And now that's more of a value proposition. I believe content will go that same route. We embrace the content's being generated by AI now. Unfortunately, a lot of it's flooding the internet and creating inconsistencies of accuracy and truth. Another topic, we've talked about it before. But people are now like, I appreciate getting the data, but I'd much rather make sure that it's correct coming from a human than just being assimilated by an AI. So we're getting into that world. So you make sure that what you produce is reflective of what you want it to be. If you want it to be coming from you in semblance, then it needs to sound like you. So small language models do a much better job of that when it comes to the creation of content. That goes for blogs, that goes for content on websites, that goes for ad copy, it goes for email communications, so forth. And even we have other agents we're talking about that have voiceover agents that you can literally make your own voice with it. You can make a dupe of your voice and teach a voice agent to be you on callbacks. Or answers your phone, where it's like, hey, look, I'm not available right now, but if you can tell me what it is you're talking about, maybe I can get some information back to you, or at least confirm or get it on Lauren's schedule or whatever. The whole idea of it is that you can help with these small language model agents some of your processes. It's always amazing. I mean, I'll take it out of a hospitality context. Let's take a salesperson. And the salesperson is very aggressive in boots on the ground communication, connectivity to a local market. They're the person that shows up at people's businesses. They're the person that wants people to come to the hotel. They want to have scheduled events. Maybe they're a Smurf salesperson, and they have a lot of demand to coming to the property for weddings, associations, fraternal order reunions, whatever. And there's a lot of dialogue about getting to the property. and a lot of their time consumption, a lot of they can't miss being on the cell phone, even if I'm in a meeting, is scheduling. There is agents now, voice agents that are very human sounding, and I would highly recommend not to make them sound or make them present them as being real people, because I have the 3 Willa bots, and anybody that watches the show knows that I have one for any chat bot or a voice assistant. 1, don't act like a human. 2, don't say you're human, I should say. 2, don't get in the way of getting in front of a human. And 3, always make a human available. Those 3 rules are paramount to me. That yes, the AI assistant can be helpful, but make sure that people understand they're dealing with an AI assistant, so they don't get mad at you thinking they were talking to a real person and then feeling like they were betrayed by finding out that it was a bot. Let it be an AI assistant and be impressed with the fact that it sounded so human, that kind of thing. But the idea that these agents can now happen, that they can run your phone so that when people call, the agent identifies themselves, say, hey, look, can you do it? And it can tell the AI agent, I'm looking because I want to go over and have an appointment to see the ballroom that we're thinking about maybe having the wedding. Great. Well, Lauren's available for how soon do you want it? Well, this week. Great. Well, Lauren's available Thursday at this and Friday at that. I'll take Thursday. Okay, great. Can get your email for confirmation, or do you want me to send a text confirmation back to you, because we already have the phone number because they used it to call, and it gets all handled. And instead, I'm sitting in a meeting, and instead of having to take that call and excuse myself from the meeting, or worse yet, I'm in another meeting with somebody else, and that call is coming through, and I don't want to miss it, and it just goes to voicemail. And now that person may call up the next property. Instead, I've actually got their appointment set up, and I just see it pop in my calendar because my AI assistant handled that. That kind of additional bandwidth without having a warm body sitting in a chair in your office waiting for the phone to ring to make those same appointments is the value proposition I'm talking about, that the tools are available now for us to use. Those are the things that are there for us now. Is it the end all be all solutions of things? No, not yet. There is a lot of other things that small language models can create for you. A lot of times we get a lot of different reportings. We have this PDF report that we get. We have this dynamic report that we can go look at, that we can extract data from, so forth and so on. And you are the person that's looking on multiple screens and looking at that number, then looking at that number and making your math calculations or whatever. And you're manually doing things. Now, one is because over time, these things have been presented into your workload, and this was the way to solve it as it was added. But now it's gotten to the point that there's so much of this manual engagement that you have with data that you now need to look at it and say, can I streamline some of this to do it itself? RPAs is a great example. It's not in the small language model, but it is kind of functionally that way, where maybe an RPA, robotic programming assistant, where you teach it to go do what you do to pull a report. I mean, literally, it duplicates what you're doing, okay, authentications and everything else. It will do this for you, where you just hit a button and it goes and then repeats that and pulls the report. Now you tell it to move that report into a location that you have another function, now this time maybe a small language model, that will take that data from where you put it, take the data from another report that you had an RPA do, and take that data and put the two together and look at it and give you what you would normally do with it, a review of variances. Like, okay, I have this revenue report, I have this occupancy report, I pull the reports automatically with the RPAs from the different platforms, brand platform or reporting platform, BI tool or whatever. And I have this one pulling from its platform and its BI tool or whatever. Put it into a Google Sheets place, just as for example purposes. You might have a Microsoft, whatever. And now I want the small language model to look at both of these places I've designated, and tell me what the variances are between this column and that column, and send that to me in an email or a notification if it's beyond a certain level. Like if this number is at or below this, and this number is at or below this, no worries. That means it's operating where it's supposed to be. If either is not right, I want a notification sent to me that says, hey, this number is different past the parameter that you outlined. And that means for me to go look at the reports that were put together and see and say, oh yeah, maybe I should be looking into why that number is that number. And off you go. You just saved yourself 5 more minutes of time having to do that manually, where you have to log in, get set up, and okay, I got that report, log into this one, I got that report, great. Look at the numbers, figure out the math. Oh, yeah, I got to look at that. All of that earlier process that you've gotten used to doing gets taken out by shortcutting it with small language models or AI agents that can do some of these things. So think of those processes, because we're not getting out of this mess. You are, if anything, in the role that people are going to be looking at how you can actually downsize even farther. If this escalates worse as to the negative impact on our industry, I'm not trying to forecast anything, but you always have to be prepared for everything. If the negative impact on our industry is such, for job preservation, as you're doing all that you're doing, you're going to be probably asked to do even more with even less resources. You might lose resources in the coming year instead of even maintaining the resources you have and doing more with them. So you have to begin to put these tools in place. So one, it can alleviate some of the immediate pressure that you have with already doing more than you have resources for, but also predicate the fact that even if your resources are brought lower and you're burdened with even more, you have some scalability within these models that you are creating and these tools that you're functioning with to hopefully abate some of the problems that gets created with things falling off the plate and or projects that don't get attended to correctly, and in turn creates issues and cost problems that jeopardize your role and your position. So I think in a way hit it well. It doesn't answer all of Universe's questions as to doing more with less and less and less, but it taps a little bit towards being able to help with some of the realities that you're dealing with right now. I don't know of anybody that's sitting back saying, I have plenty of people doing all the things I need and there's no pressure on anybody. Those words have never come from anybody I've talked to this past, however long. Always there's more to do than I have time for. Always there's more demand than I have resources for. Always is there more expectations than I have capabilities for. With that, we need to create tangible, real solutions. And as I said before with the analogy, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Something as huge as that, it's easy to look at the larger projects and see how we can get them off our plate. It's even harder, but more functionally valuable, to see how we can take the constant small things that dilute our time and see if we can make them more efficient. So thank you so much for watching us on our TV channel, our simulcast platforms. Catch us on our radio station, hospitalityradio.com, or on our TV channel, hospitalitychannel.tv, or on our app, Hospitality Channel. You can get it on Apple, iOS, Google Play, TV station. You can get on your smart TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Google TV, what have you. My name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.